Hi there, my name is Aaliyah, and I am here to chat with you today about the SHSAT exam. So, likely you are a parent with a child that is either in sixth or seventh grade in New York City, and you are thinking about having them take the SHSAT so that they have an opportunity to potentially go to one of the specialized high schools. So, I'm here to chat with you a little bit about what the test looks like, which schools require that test, and then even just a little bit about high schools in general and what preparing for the test might look like. So I'm going to just share my screen with you right now to go through this presentation about the SHSAT. If at any point you have any questions for me, feel free to send me an email, leah@robinsreadylearning.com. I am happy to chat with you. If you go to my website, robinsreadylearning.com, you can also set up time on my Calendly for a free parent call and we can discuss any questions that you have. All right, so I wanted to start by just giving a little bit of information about me. I worked in the DOE for about 10 years. I was in both middle schools and high schools. The school that I started in was a sixth grade through 12th grade building. It was an early college school, actually. After that, I worked 3 years as an instructional math coach. So I worked with teachers, I worked on building curriculum. I was in and out of many schools within the DOE with that position. And then in January of 2020, I actually left that position to go full time with my tutoring business, Robin's Ready Learning. I am a tutor. I tutor full time. I also have tutors that work with me, but I am the one that does the SHSAT tutoring. I have a lot of experience in working with students on the SHSAT, along with a lot of other popular tests. In addition to that, math regents and state tests. My specialty is mathematics. And so for the higher level tests like the SAT, I only do math right now for that. And for the SHSAT, I do both ELA and mathematics. But I will get a little bit more into what that test is going to look like. Okay. So these might be things that you already know. And if it is, you might just want to listen again or fast forward. It's totally up to you. But there are 8 schools as of right now that require the SHSAT to get in. And that is all that they require in terms of like setting up an application. And it is Bronx Science, Brooklyn Latin School, Brooklyn Tech, High School for Math, Science, and Engineering at City College, High School of American Study at Lehman College, Queens High School for the Sciences, Staten Island Tech, and Stuyvesant. Lastly, LaGuardia is considered a specialized high school as well, but it does not require the SHSAT. It requires an audition to apply to one of their programs at LaGuardia. Now, these schools do rank additionally in terms of typically we've seen certain schools require a higher grade on the exam, but I would say they are all really excellent schools. And if your child gets into any of them, that's wonderful. At that point, I would be thinking about their location. I would be thinking about if you're looking for a big school or a small school. And I would also be looking about what they specialize in, whether your child is more of a science person or somebody who's more into the humanities side of things. And maybe they don't know yet, and that's totally okay. But you'll learn a little bit about these schools as you start thinking about the high school process. But I do have to say, if your child was to go to any of these schools, I truly believe they will receive a wonderful education. In addition to that, um, there's over 500 high schools in New York City. And those 8 schools are not the only way for your child to get a good education in high school. There are many, many, many great high schools in New York City. Some of them require their own application process, which will include essays, maybe creating a video, answering questions, certain grade point averages. And that's another sort of route we can discuss. If you have questions about high schools, I do some consulting there as well. But for now, I just want you to keep in mind that there's the specialized route and then there's the non-specialized route. And if you decide that your child maybe doesn't want to take the SHSAT, that's okay. They don't have to go to one of those schools. However, if you want them to have their options open, meaning take the SHSAT, but then also know that maybe they're going to go to one of these other schools, the learning that they get out of preparing for the SHSAT is going to be helpful for them, regardless of how they do on the exam. It teaches them about who they are as learners. It helps them prepare for something. I think it's a pretty high quality exam, and that the content on the questions is good. So prepping for that test and then maybe not going to a specialized high school, it's not like you're going to be wasting that time. It's time well spent in preparing. Um, I mentioned before that I worked at an early college school. So those are just high schools to keep in mind. They are awesome because they give students the opportunity to take college level classes while they are in high school and graduate with an associate's degree. So in the handbook for high schools, you'll see a list of the early college schools and then the colleges that they are associated with. So one option, I'm mentioning this because in addition to the specialized high schools, if your child goes to an early college school, they're going to be receiving this honors benefit of that college level classes. If your school has an IB program in it, that's also going to have potential for getting college credit as well. And again, these are just advanced classes that are really great for your student. I can answer more questions about those if you have any. So please send me an email if you are interested. So I mentioned a little bit about this before, but why should your child take the SHSAT? And if they are going to take it, why should they take the test seriously? Well, most of these are pretty obvious, but just to reiterate, it's going to give them more options or more opportunities. The test stuff, the content on the test will be useful. There's never a time when learning how to be a better reader isn't going to be helpful for them in the future. Same thing with the revising and editing or even the math. It's a good experience for future standardized tests. I've noticed ownership on the student is huge. A lot of my students take this on and they have this sense of like, I'm going to do something that's challenging. And I also think that it is a practical test when prepared. I don't think it's a quote unquote mean test where there's so much content that we can't really prepare for. It's a test that you can prepare for, and it is a test that I think it's a valid, good, solid test. Now, this is all based on the practice tests that are released by New York City. I actually have never seen like an actual test because they don't release those, but we have the practice test and we have test booklets and things like that. Okay, so just to recap, the SHSAT is not the only option for your child to go to a great school. So I just want to throw that out there. I do not want to push this test on anybody who is not interested in taking it. It's not the only route. There are so many excellent high schools, and there are up and coming schools that are getting a lot of traction as well. I do think that committing to prep for the test is worth it unless you know for a fact that you don't want to go to one of the specialized high schools, or you think that they just have a better option somewhere else. And lastly, the test is given Actually, this year it was given in November. Last year it was given in December. And then the year before that it was given in January. And then the year before that it was given in October. So I think really it could be given anytime between October and December, January, depending on the year. The January test date, I think, was mainly because of COVID. So November, December is like the time that we want to shoot for in terms of preparing for this test. I should really say end of October, beginning of December is when you want to think about this test being given. Okay, so that's some of the general overview. I'm going to just talk to you about what the actual test looks like and just some of my tips in thinking about preparing for it. So here's how it goes. We've got 57 ELA questions and 57 math questions. Students get 3 hours to work on the whole thing. They will get more time if they have accommodations. And I just urge you to look into those accommodations as soon as you can. If your child gets them on other exams, they should be able to get them on this test. Now, when they have this test, it's a little different than the SAT or maybe some other specialized tests because it's not broken down in sections. This is good. This means that they have a little bit more autonomy in terms of if they know their strengths, they could spend a little bit more time in certain areas over others. ELA, we've got revising and editing. So those are multiple choice questions based on grammar, and then the rest is reading comprehension. Math, we've got some grid-in questions, which means just non-multiple choice, and then you have 52 multiple choice questions. Okay, so grammar. Something that is loosely taught in many schools because it's not really an explicit standard. It comes up when students are working on essays and writing pieces, but I've seen less and less it being taught as a unit. That could be not true in certain cases, but the SHSAT, in my opinion, has a pretty standard group of grammar questions. So you can kind of always be aware of the type of question. So is it a punctuation question? Is it something with the verb tenses? Is it a misplaced modifier? Is it looking for you to add in a transition word? There are definitely ways that we can be aware of these types of questions. And it does take time to really learn them and be really comfortable with knowing what they look like. Reading comprehension. So, reading comprehension, you've got all different sorts of passages. Okay. So that means you could be given a speech, a personal essay, a biography, an argument. You can also be getting different literary texts, including poetry, historical fiction, science fiction, realistic fiction, satire. There's, I didn't throw in here, we can also have regular scientific pieces or just even historical documents, things like that. I think it's really important for your child to understand their strengths. So maybe they are better at the nonfiction pieces over the fiction pieces. Maybe they know that poetry is one of their weaker areas, and we can kind of work from there. The questions are usually in one of these 3 categories: something that deals with the main idea, something that deals with a detail, or an inference we can make, which is based usually on the main idea or even the detail. In terms of reading comprehension, to get better at reading comprehension, you got to read. This could be novels, this could be newspapers, this could be textbooks. Any exposure to reading is going to be really helpful. Increasing vocabulary. So as your children are reading, like Give them some New York Times articles. There's going to be words in there that they might be unfamiliar with, but if they are, you can take that as a learning opportunity for them to look up the words and just keep on adding to their repertoire. And then practice tests are going to be really helpful here. And then just learning different strategies in terms of efficiency and how to maybe go back to the text to find answers when they are searching for them. So, strategy, practice tests, strengthening your vocabulary, and just lots and lots of reading is going to be really helpful for reading comprehension. Okay, talk about math for a second. Math. These are the basic topics. All of these topics should have been taught by the time your child takes the exam. There shouldn't be any topic that they've never learned before. With that being said, that doesn't mean that the questions will be within something they've already done. So many of the questions might be a step above what they've already learned. Some of them will be totally doable, totally on grade level. Some of them will even be more simple, but there will be a handful of challenging questions. And with that, we have to practice. We have to know our content, and we also have to be feeling comfortable without a calculator. Unless they change the rules, you are not using a calculator on the exam. So I say strong fluency skills in terms of operations with rational numbers, like even dividing whole digit numbers, things like that are going to be really useful. You don't want your child to feel stuck when the content is hard and the computations are hard. You want the computational part to feel easy because those are the things that's like a muscle we can just kind of keep building and working on. And then we do continue to work through the conceptual stuff. Ratios and proportional relationships, those are going to show up a lot. Algebraic equations are going to show up a lot. And this is my opinion. It might not be everybody else's, but I think the strong math skills are more important than the strategy. So, yes, the strategies will be there after we learn a certain number of math skills and math concepts. The strategies kind of are the boost, but they're not going to be the only thing. This test, in my opinion, other people might disagree, but this test is not about tips and tricks. Know the content and then have the strategies to boost you up, checking your answers, being more efficient, knowing how you can eliminate answers right away based on the question. So those are my thoughts. And just to piggyback off of that, something common to the SATs is we want to first say to ourselves, okay, could we get 100 on this test if it wasn't timed? That would be the goal. So can we say if we had all the time in the world, could we answer every question right? Now, we don't have to get 100, but could that be our goal? Once you get to the top of that, then we start like chippering away at becoming more efficient, answering questions faster, things like that. Okay, so in terms of preparing, you're going to want to plan. So meaning, when are we going to start the process? How many weeks are we planning on prepping for? You want exposure to a ton of questions, whether that be through a book, whether that be through the test online, whether that be through a course or some sort of preparing with me or somebody else. And then you also want a few full-length tests. You want your students to be aware of what these tests are going to look and feel like. I have seen mixed results with kids preparing a little bit too early, but at the same time, if it's done properly and your child is doing homework in between, then the work is really going to stick. if they start too early, but are not really putting in the effort or taking it seriously in the beginning, it's not going to be helpful to start early, if that makes sense. Okay, so with that being said, I do offer some tutoring and some things that I can do to support. I know there are lots of options. I mean, I don't know about lots, but there are options out there. If you are in New York City, there are groups, Tutorverse, Queller Prep, and then there's things that kids get at school if you want groups. If you are looking for private tutoring, that is what I do. I also run small groups sometimes. I don't have one right now. If you're watching this video, it is in December. So I may have one in the summer. But as of the winter and the spring, I am not having a small group because I am focusing on my privates right now. So here is the breakdown of what I offer. Private lessons are $700 a month for 1 hour a week. These include weekly homework assignments that are mandatory, along with a monthly assessment. So what that means, this says a weekly assessment, that should actually say monthly assessment. So that just means at the end of a month, we do a little assessment to see how your child is doing, and it's not going to be a full 3-hour test. It's going to be shorter than that based on some of the things that we worked on and plus some future materials. Now, 4 hours a week could be a great start in the beginning. As we get closer to the test, I would recommend doing 2 hours a week. So that would be 8 lessons a month, because then you can dedicate a full hour to ELA and a full hour to math each week instead of breaking it up like 30-30. But maybe you only want to focus on just math or just ELA. And in that case, that would be, I would say, four lessons a month. So $700 for 4 lessons, $1,300 for 8 lessons, and you can always add on from there. If you're thinking you just want to go with a la carte, meaning you're just going to get that 1 hour of tutoring, that's at a rate of $180 an hour. I do also have some packages available if you want to buy something in bulk, but maybe not necessarily use a certain amount in a month. And then the last thing that I'm offering is a math online course. It's only math right now, but I wanted to also have something that was affordable for everybody. And I have modules 1 and 2 available, which includes rational numbers and fluency, and it's self-guided. And the modules are currently running at $25 a module. So these are courses that include video lessons along with mini assessments after each lesson, and then like a little assessment as a wrap up. This is not the only way to study for math. It really shouldn't be. It's a wonderful supplement though, because it just provides that guidance, and it is independent. It's self-guided, but it provides you with okay, we do this lesson, we do everything in here, and then we move on. We do everything in here, and then we move on. And you can still communicate with me if you need additional support from there. Okay, so at this point, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, learn about what I do, learn about the SHSAT. My website, you can check it out where I have my Calendly. If you want to email me, feel free to do so if you're interested in any sort of tutoring or purchasing the online modules, which I'm really excited about. And I'm still working through the rest of the course right now. Like I said, there are 2 available, and I will continue to release some more. Okay. Any questions, please let me know. But otherwise, it was great chatting with you, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thanks so much.